They said the most dangerous crime boss in Manhattan would never look twice at a quiet assistant who made herself invisible. But then he defended me in front of a volatile client, promoted me above everyone else, and started driving me home every night with his hand wrapped around mine. The woman who told me I wasn't his type? She just watched him walk out of the building holding me like I was the only thing that mattered, and her face told me she finally understood what I was still trying to believe. It started with Piper's voice cutting through the quiet buzz of the office like a slap. "You're not his type, June. He would never notice you." The words landed right between my ribs and stayed there, heavy and sharp. We stood near the glass wall that overlooked Manhattan from the 52nd floor. Morning sun hitting the skyscrapers outside and pouring into the office, bouncing off polished marble floors and sleek black furniture. I swallowed and pretended to check something on my tablet just so I didn't have to look at her. "You didn't have to say it like that," I murmured. Piper leaned her hip against the edge of the reception desk, the emerald green dress hugging her curves like it had been made for her. Her dark curls fell in perfect spirals over her shoulders. She looked like she belonged in that office, like she belonged anywhere she decided to stand. "I'm just being honest," Piper replied, lowering her voice. "But not enough. Look around, June. Do you see the kind of women that orbit a man like him?" But what Piper didn't know was that someone was watching. June didn't have to look. She saw them every day. Tall, confident. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect clothes. Women who walked in like they owned the city. Even when everyone in the room knew that the real power was sitting behind a certain black glass door at the end of the corridor. Lincoln Knox. Her boss. Her mafia boss. June adjusted the small silver name tag pinned to her navy blue blouse and kept her eyes on the tablet screen even though she wasn't seeing anything. Piper smirked. "You're sweet. You're efficient. You're nice." She said the word like it was almost a problem. But he doesn't go for nice. He goes for challenge, fire, mystery. You're not his type of woman, and that's okay. You just need to accept it. One wrong move, and everything would fall apart. The elevator chimed. Both women turned their heads at the same time, like the sound was a string pulling them. The doors slid open. Lincoln Knox stepped out. For a second, the office seemed to tighten around his presence. His dark suit fit him perfectly, the charcoal fabric cutting a sharp line over his broad shoulders. The burgundy shirt under the jacket was open at the collar, just enough to make him look more dangerous than formal. His beard was trimmed close, dark and precise, framing a jaw that looked like it had been carved from stone. He walked with calm confidence like nothing and no one could rush him. Two men in dark suits followed a few steps behind him, their eyes scanning the floor out of habit, reading every corner of the space. His security always close, never obvious. That moment, everything in the room changed. June's heart did that familiar, stupid jump. Don't look at him. Don't stare. Don't. He passed by the reception area and the light from the windows fell over his profile. Strong features, dark eyes that missed nothing. The kind of presence that made people straighten their spines without realizing it. He tapped his phone screen with his thumb, glanced at a notification, then slipped it back into his jacket pocket. "Good morning, Mr. Knox," Piper said, her voice sweetening instantly. She straightened, shoulders back, chest forward, smile perfectly calibrated. "Good morning," he replied without slowing down. He didn't look at her, but he looked at June. Just for a second. His dark eyes found hers across the reception area, held her gaze for a heartbeat longer than necessary, then continued toward his office. Long strides eating up the polished floor. Piper didn't notice. She watched him walk away with open appreciation, eyes traveling down his back and lower. Then she leaned closer to June and whispered, "See? Not his type." He knew something that no one else in the building did. June swallowed again. Her cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and something that tasted like shame. She hated that she cared. She hated that she noticed how his sleeves were rolled just enough to show the expensive watch when he reached for a file. She hated that she knew the pattern of his schedule, the way his mood changed depending on who came through that door. She hated that Piper was probably right. "I don't want to talk about this," June said, voice low but firm. "We're at work." Piper shrugged, picking up a stack of folders from her desk. Her glossy red nails tapped against the cardboard. "We are at work, and I'm telling you this so you don't embarrass yourself. Men like him don't end up with girls who stand in the background and pray not to be noticed." She gave June a quick, almost sympathetic look. "You're better off focusing on your job." If you've ever been told you're not good enough, not his type, not what he wants, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now and comment where you're watching from. We're building a family of people who know that authentic beats perfect every single time. She walked away then, hips swaying, heading toward the conference room where some of the associates were already gathering. Her heels clicked sharply on the floor. June took a breath and forced her shoulders to relax. She checked the time on her computer screen. 9:03 a.m. Another day. Another morning where she would see him from a distance, hear his voice giving instructions, watch him move through meetings and calls and deals that shaped the city's underground economy. Another day where her heart would respond like it belonged to him when in reality he didn't even know who she really was. "You're not his type." The words repeated in her mind, quiet and cruel. She pushed them away and focused on what she could control. Emails, calls, schedules. June was good at her work. That was something nobody could take from her. She organized the calendar, filtered messages, confirmed appointments, sent reminders, redirected calls. She kept the floor running smoothly like a quiet engine. But this wasn't even the most shocking part. The rest of the morning went by in a blur of tasks. Piper passed by Lincoln's glass office several times, always with a file in hand, always with a reason to knock. June heard her laugh from across the floor, saw the way Piper tilted her head, the way she leaned just a little closer when he spoke to her. At 11:17 a.m., a meeting ran late. At 11:26, one of the clients arrived earlier than scheduled. At 11:30, the client was already annoyed. June saw it coming before anyone else did. A tall man in an expensive gray suit paced near the waiting area, his jaw tight, tie slightly loosened. He kept checking his watch, then the glass door where Lincoln was still in a different meeting. "Sir, Mr. Knox is finishing up an important call," June said, standing from her desk and walking over to him with a polite smile. "He hasn't forgotten you. He asked us to make sure you were comfortable. Can I get you a coffee? Water? Something while you wait?" "What you can get me is the man I came here to see," the client snapped. His voice was loud enough to make a few heads turn. "I don't have time to sit around like this." June kept her expression calm, even though her pulse picked up. "I understand completely, Mr. Castellano. Your time is valuable. If you'd like, I can—" "I don't need what you can do. I need Knox." The glass door to Lincoln's office opened. Everyone thought the deal went smoothly, but they were wrong. Lincoln stepped out, phone still pressed to his ear, but his eyes had already found the source of the raised voice. His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. The way he moved, slow, deliberate, like a predator deciding whether the noise was worth investigating, made the client take an unconscious step back. Lincoln ended his call with a single word, pocketed his phone, and walked directly to where June stood. He didn't acknowledge the client. Not yet. "Are you all right?" Lincoln asked, his voice low, directed only at June. She blinked, surprised. "Yes, Mr. Knox. I was just—" "Step back." he said quietly. Not a suggestion. A command wrapped in silk. June moved back 3 steps, her heart hammering against her ribs. Lincoln turned to the client then, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mr. Castellano, Lincoln said, his voice perfectly controlled. You're early. That's fine. But you don't raise your voice at my staff, especially not at her. The client's face flushed red. She wasn't. I don't care. Lincoln's tone was final, absolute. You're here for a favor. Remember that. Now. You can wait 15 minutes like a professional, or you can leave and we'll consider our business concluded. Your choice. His next decision would decide whether he lived or died. The client swallowed hard, his earlier bravado evaporating. I'll wait. Good. Lincoln turned his back on the man, a calculated dismissal that everyone in the office recognized as a power move, and looked at June again. Coffee. My office. 10 minutes. It wasn't a request. June nodded, not trusting her voice. Lincoln walked back to his office and the door closed behind him with a quiet click. The floor was silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the whispers started. Piper appeared at June's elbow so fast she might have teleported. What was that? She hissed. June's hands were shaking. I don't know. In front of a client, he defended you. It's professional, June stammered. He doesn't want clients disrespecting his staff. Piper's eyes narrowed. He doesn't do that for anyone. Ever. Someone in the room was lying. But who? June turned away, walking back to her desk on unsteady legs. She could feel every pair of eyes in the office tracking her movement, including Piper's. You're not his type. But the way Lincoln Knox had looked at her, the way his voice had gone cold as winter when that client raised his voice, the way he'd told her to step back like her safety was the only thing that mattered in that moment. Maybe Piper was wrong. Maybe she'd always been wrong. And maybe June was about to find out exactly what type Lincoln Knox actually preferred. He couldn't explain why, but danger was closing in. 10 minutes later, June stood outside Lincoln's black glass door, a cup of his preferred coffee. Black, 2 sugars, balanced carefully in her hand. She knocked twice. Come in. She opened the door and stepped into his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A massive desk dominated the space, clean lines and dark wood. Everything precise, everything controlled. Lincoln sat behind the desk, jacket off now, burgundy shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. He was reviewing a document, a pen moving in quick, decisive strokes across the page. June set the coffee on his desk, careful not to disturb the papers. Thank you, he said without looking up. She turned to leave. June. She froze. He'd never used her first name before. It was always Miss Perry, in the rare moments he addressed her directly. She turned back. Yes, Mr. Knox? He set down his pen and leaned back in his chair, those dark eyes finally lifting to meet hers. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Really looked. Like he was seeing past the neat blouse and the nervous hands and the way she tried to make herself small. What he said next shattered her trust instantly. You handled that well, Lincoln said. Castellano is a difficult man. You kept your composure. Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job. I know. He picked up his coffee, took a sip, his eyes never leaving hers. That's why I'm making a change. Starting Monday, you're my personal assistant. You'll work directly with me. Handle my schedule, my meetings, my calls. Everything goes through you. June's breath caught. Sir, Piper has more experience with... I didn't ask Piper. His voice was firm but not unkind. I'm asking you. Do you accept? Her mind was racing. This was a promotion. A massive one. It would put her directly in Lincoln's orbit every single day. It would also put a target on her back from every woman in this office who'd been vying for his attention, including Piper. You're not his type. Yes, June heard herself say. I accept. Lincoln's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes warmed. Just a fraction. Good. We start Monday. Clear your current assignments by Friday. Yes, Mr. Knox. And June? He set down his coffee. From now on, you report only to me. No one else gives you instructions. No one else has authority over your work. Understood? It was protection. She realized it instantly. He was creating a shield around her, insulating her from office politics, from Piper's jealousy, from anyone who might try to undermine her. In that moment, the entire balance of power flipped. I understand, June said quietly. Close the door on your way out. She nodded and turned, her legs somehow carrying her out of his office despite feeling like they might give out. She closed the door behind her with a soft click. The entire floor was watching. Piper stood by her desk, arms crossed, her perfect face twisted with something ugly. June walked back to her desk, sat down, and opened her email. Her hands were still shaking. She'd just been promoted to Lincoln Knox's personal assistant. The man Piper said would never notice her. The man who'd just defended her in front of a client, promoted her above everyone else, and created a protected space for her in his empire. Maybe Piper had been wrong about everything. And maybe, just maybe, June was exactly his type after all. What happened next changed everything. Monday morning arrived with June's stomach in knots. She'd spent the entire weekend replaying Friday in her mind. Lincoln's voice, the way he'd defended her, the promotion, the look in Piper's eyes. You're not his type. But he'd made her his personal assistant. That had to mean something, didn't it? She stepped off the elevator at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than usual. The office was quiet, just the hum of the HVAC and the distant ding of elevators. A few early arrivers sat at their desks, but most of the floor was still empty. June walked to what used to be her desk near reception and stopped. Her things were gone. Her nameplate, her coffee mug, the small, succulent plant she'd been nursing for 6 months. All of it cleared away like she'd never existed there. Panic fluttered in her chest. Then she saw him. But there was one thing he didn't know about his closest ally. Lincoln stood near his office door, watching her. He was in a black suit today, perfectly tailored, a deep gray shirt underneath. His expression was unreadable. Your desk is in here now, he said simply. Next to mine. June blinked. Inside your office? Yes. He turned and walked through his door, clearly expecting her to follow. She did, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. Inside his office, a second desk had been positioned perpendicular to his. Sleek, modern, perfectly organized. Her nameplate sat in the center. Her coffee mug. Her plant, looking healthier than it had in weeks. I took the liberty of having everything moved over the weekend, Lincoln said, settling into his chair. You'll need access to my calendar, my files, my calls. This is more efficient. June stood there, her hands clasped in front of her, trying to process. She would be working in his office. All day. Every day. Just the two of them behind this black glass door. Is there a problem? Lincoln asked, his dark eyes finding hers. No, sir. I wasn't expecting. Coffee, he said, cutting through her stammering. Black, 2 sugars. Then we'll go over today's schedule. It was a dismissal and a task all at once. June nodded and left his office, aware of every eye on the floor tracking her movement. Especially Piper's, who sat at her desk with a smile so tight it looked painful. He couldn't explain why, but danger was closing in. June made the coffee with shaking hands, trying to steady her breathing. When she returned to Lincoln's office and closed the door behind her, the quiet was almost shocking. Out there, the office buzzed with energy and gossip. In here, it was just them. She set his coffee on his desk. He murmured his thanks without looking up from the document he was reviewing. June sat at her new desk and opened her laptop. The calendar was already synced, color-coded, efficient. She began working through emails, confirming appointments, adjusting meeting times that had shifted over the weekend. Lincoln worked in silence. The scratch of his pen, the occasional tap of his keyboard, the rustle of papers being moved from one stack to another. But June felt his attention. It wasn't constant, but it was there. Brief glances when he thought she wasn't looking. The way his eyes lingered when she stood to retrieve a file from the cabinet. How he paused, just for a second, when she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She tried to make herself small. It was instinct, years of training herself to take up less space, to be less noticeable. She kept her voice soft when she spoke, her movements careful and quiet. "You don't have to do that," Lincoln said suddenly. June looked up, startled. "Do what, sir?" "Make yourself smaller." He set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. "You're my assistant now. You have authority. Use it." Yes, sir." His eyes stayed on her, and for a moment she saw something in his expression she couldn't quite identify. Not frustration, not pity. Something that looked almost like curiosity. Something didn't add up, and the truth was darker than he expected. "The Castellano meeting on Thursday," he said, shifting back to business. "Cancel it. Reschedule for next week. He needs to learn patience." June made the note, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Should I give him a reason? Tell him I'm busy. That's reason enough. The morning passed in a rhythm of calls and emails and quiet efficiency. June handled 3 scheduling conflicts, redirected 2 pushy salespeople, and managed to get Lincoln's signature on a stack of contracts before his 10 o'clock meeting. "You're good at this," Lincoln said as he stood to leave for the meeting. He shrugged into his jacket, the fabric settling perfectly across his broad shoulders. "Thank you, sir." "Lincoln," he corrected. "When it's just us, you can call me Lincoln." June's breath caught. "That wouldn't be appropriate, Mr. Knox." He studied her for a long moment, something almost like amusement flickering in his eyes. "Appropriate," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "We'll see." He left for his meeting, and June sat at her desk, her heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to examine too closely. Through the glass wall, she could see Piper watching. Always watching. June turned back to her computer and got back to work. She was good at her job. That was something no one could take from her, not even Piper. And certainly not the growing awareness that Lincoln Knox saw her in ways she'd never expected. What followed next was completely unexpected. Tuesday morning, June arrived at 7:45 again, the new routine already forming. She walked straight to Lincoln's office, her desk waiting like it had always been there. Lincoln was already at his desk, reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee steaming beside him. He glanced up when she entered. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Knox." That almost smile flickered across his face again. "Still not ready for Lincoln?" "It wouldn't be appropriate, sir." "You said that yesterday." He set down his tablet. "Tell me, June, what would be appropriate?" The way he said her name, slow, deliberate, like he was tasting it, made something warm unfold in her chest. She set down her bag, buying herself time to answer. "Professional boundaries," she said carefully. "I'm your assistant. There should be distance." "Distance," he repeated. He stood, and June's breath hitched as he walked around his desk toward her. He stopped 3 feet away. close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and understated. Is that what you want? Distance? June's voice failed her. What did she want? She didn't even know anymore. I want to do my job well. You already do. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. But you didn't answer my question. That moment, everything in the room changed. The office phone rang, shattering the moment. Lincoln held her gaze for one more heartbeat, then turned and answered it with his usual calm authority. June exhaled slowly and moved to her desk, her hands still shaking slightly. The morning proceeded normally. Calls, emails, a tense negotiation over a contract that Lincoln handled with cold precision. At 10:30, June stood to get more coffee. I'll get it, Lincoln said, already rising from his chair. June blinked. Sir, that's my job. You've been working since you arrived. Take a break. He was already walking toward the door. June sat back down, confused and oddly touched. Through the glass wall, she watched him walk across the office floor toward the coffee station. Piper saw him coming and immediately stood, smoothing her dress. A red number today, tight and attention-grabbing. Lincoln, Piper called out, her voice carrying across the quiet office. I was just about to. He walked right past her without slowing down. Piper's smile froze on her face. Everyone thought the deal went smoothly, but they were wrong. Lincoln reached the coffee station and began making 2 cups. The entire office floor had gone quiet, everyone pretending to work while watching the scene unfold. Lincoln Knox never made his own coffee. Ever. It was beneath him, below his pay grade, something assistants handled. But here he was, measuring coffee grounds, adding water, waiting as the machine hissed and gurgled. Piper stood there, still frozen, her face cycling through shock, confusion, and then something ugly that looked like rage. June watched from behind the glass, her heart hammering against her ribs. He was making her coffee, in front of everyone. The gesture was small, insignificant on the surface, but in this office, in this world, it was a declaration. If people like Piper who tear others down for not fitting their mold make your blood boil like they do mine, hit that subscribe button and join us. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's stand together against everyone who's ever told someone they're not enough. Lincoln returned with both cups, nudged his office door open with his shoulder, and set 1 cup on June's desk. Black coffee with a splash of cream and 1 sugar. Exactly how she liked it. Thank you, June whispered, staring at the cup like it might disappear. You're welcome. He settled back at his desk, already shifting focus to his next task. But June couldn't focus. Her hands wrapped around the warm cup, and she tried to process what had just happened. He'd walked past Piper, beautiful, confident Piper, without a glance. He'd made June's coffee himself, in front of the entire office. You're not his type. Maybe Piper had been wrong about everything. The rest of the day, June felt the weight of every stare through that glass wall. Whispers followed her when she left to use the restroom. When she returned to her desk, she found a note someone had slipped under Lincoln's office door. She picked it up, unfolded it. Sleeping your way to the top? How original. The words hit like a slap. June's hands shook as she crumpled the paper, shoving it deep into her desk drawer. She wouldn't let them see it hurt. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. June. She looked up. Lincoln was watching her, his expression sharp. What was that? Nothing, sir. Just junk mail. His right-hand man had been hiding something from him. His eyes narrowed. He knew she was lying, but he didn't push. Come here. June stood and walked to his desk, the crumpled note burning a hole in her awareness. Lincoln pulled out a folder, flipped it open. The Romano contract. I need you to review the terms, flag anything that looks problematic. You have a good eye for detail. It was trust. Real trust. He was giving her substantive work, not just scheduling and coffee runs. I'll have it done by end of day, June said. I know you will. He handed her the folder, his fingers brushing hers briefly. The touch was electric, gone before she could process it. You're doing well, June. Better than I expected. Thank you, sir. Lincoln, he said again, quieter this time. When it's just us, it's Lincoln. June met his eyes, saw the intensity there, the patience. He wasn't pushing, but he was consistent. Steady. Like he could wait forever for her to catch up to where he already was. Lincoln, she whispered, testing the name on her tongue. His expression softened, just slightly. Better. June returned to her desk, the folder in her hands, his name still echoing in her mind. Outside the glass walls, Piper was pacing, her phone pressed to her ear, her face twisted with fury. But inside this office, behind this door, June felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Under the floorboard, he discovered a truth he wasn't ready for. Friday had been chaos. The moment Lincoln dismissed her from his office after offering the promotion, June had walked back to her desk in a daze. She'd sat down, opened her email, and stared at the screen without seeing anything. The promotion had happened so fast. One moment she was delivering coffee, the next she was being told she'd work directly with Lincoln Knox, handle his entire schedule, become the gatekeeper to the most powerful man in the building. You're not his type. Piper's words still echoed, but they were getting quieter, drowned out by the memory of Lincoln's voice. I didn't ask Piper. I'm asking you. What she found in the envelope froze her in place. June had spent the rest of Friday clearing her assignments, transferring files, and trying to ignore the stares. Piper had disappeared into the ladies' room for 20 minutes and came back with red-rimmed eyes and a smile that could cut glass. Now, Monday morning, sitting at her new desk inside Lincoln's office, June was still processing. Second thoughts? Lincoln asked without looking up from his computer. June startled. No, sir. This is a significant responsibility. It is. He saved whatever he was working on and turned his chair to face her fully. That's why I chose you. But Piper has experience playing politics and positioning herself for attention. Lincoln interrupted, his tone cool. That's not what I need. I need someone competent, someone trustworthy, someone who does the work without needing constant validation. June felt heat rise in her cheeks. I appreciate your confidence, but do you doubt my judgment? He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes holding hers. No, of course not. Then accept the compliment, June. You earned this position. He stood and walked to the large window, hands sliding into his pockets. Let me be clear about something. This promotion isn't charity. I don't do charity in business. You're here because you make my operation run smoothly. You anticipate problems before they become crises. You handle difficult people with grace. He glanced back at her. Like Castellano on Friday. You kept your composure when he raised his voice. Most people would have either cowered or escalated. You did neither. He realized he wasn't alone. Someone else had arrived. June swallowed hard. I was just doing your job exceptionally well. Yes, that's my point. He turned fully to face her. I'm a businessman, June. Everything I do is calculated. Every decision has a reason. I promoted you because you're the best person for this role. Not because I felt sorry for you. Not because of some misguided sense of fairness. Because you're good at what you do. The words settled over her like a warm blanket. He wasn't being kind. He was being honest. And somehow, that meant more. Thank you, June said quietly. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He returned to his desk, already shifting back to business mode. Now, Let's discuss what this position actually entails. You'll manage my calendar, all of it, personal and professional. You'll screen my calls, filter my emails, handle my travel arrangements. You'll sit in on meetings and take notes. You'll have access to confidential information that cannot leave this office. June nodded, already mentally cataloging the responsibilities. You'll also be my first line of defense, Lincoln continued. People will try to go around you to get to me. Don't let them. I don't care if it's a board member or a family friend. Everyone goes through you first. No exceptions. Even your... June hesitated. Even your security team? Even them. Marcus and Jules report to me, but they coordinate through you for scheduling. He pulled up a document on his computer and turned the screen toward her. This is the list of people who have direct access to me without going through you first. It's a very short list. June leaned forward to read. The list had exactly 3 names. Marcus Chen, head of security. Jules Romano, second-in-command security. And Dr. Sarah Mitchell, personal physician. That's it? June asked. That's it. Everyone else, including Piper, including the other department heads, including my own cousins, they go through you. Lincoln's expression was serious. This will make you unpopular. People will resent the power you have. They'll try to undermine you, go around you, turn me against you. Can you handle that? And suddenly he realized he was being played. June thought about Piper's face on Friday, the cruel note that had been slipped under the door, the whispers that would only get louder now. Yes, she said firmly. I can handle it. Good. Lincoln stood and walked to a filing cabinet, pulled out a folder and handed it to her. Your new contract. Read it carefully. Your salary has been adjusted accordingly. You'll also have access to a company car and driver for late nights. Sign the last page and return it to me by end of day. June opened the folder and her breath caught. The salary was nearly triple what she'd been making. The benefits were comprehensive. Health insurance, dental, vision, a retirement plan that matched contributions at a rate she'd never seen. This is... June looked up at him, stunned. This is very generous. It's market rate for someone with your level of responsibility. He returned to his chair. I take care of people who take care of me, June. It's that simple. She wanted to argue, to say it was too much, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He meant what he said. This was business. Calculated. Fair. I'll sign it today, June said. I know you will. He checked his watch. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. While I'm gone, familiarize yourself with my calendar for the next 2 weeks. Cancel anything that looks like it can be rescheduled. Consolidate the rest. I want my schedule tighter. Yes, sir. Lincoln, he reminded her again, a hint of amusement in his voice. We've been over this. What she said next shattered his trust instantly. Yes, Lincoln. The name still felt strange in her mouth, too intimate, but he smiled. A real smile this time, not just the hint of one. Better. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and shrugged into it. When I get back, we'll go over some of the more sensitive files. Things you'll need to know, but can never discuss outside this office. June nodded, understanding the weight of what he was saying. He was trusting her with information that could destroy him if it fell into the wrong hands. I understand. I won't betray that trust. Lincoln paused at the door, his hand on the handle. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. I know you won't. That's why you're here. He left, and June sat in the sudden quiet of his office. Through the glass wall, she could see the entire floor. People were watching, always watching. Piper stood near her desk, arms crossed, talking to 2 other women. All 3 of them were staring at Lincoln's office with undisguised hostility. June turned away and opened her laptop. The calendar loaded, color-coded, and packed. She began working through it, canceling, rescheduling, consolidating. She worked steadily for the next 40 minutes, so focused she didn't notice when Lincoln returned until he set a cup of coffee on her desk. "You've been staring at that screen for almost an hour," he said. "Take a break." June looked up, startled. There's a lot to reorganize." "I know. That's why I hired you." He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "But I need you sharp, not burned out. Drink the coffee. Stand up. Look at something other than a screen for 5 minutes." It was an order, but delivered gently. June stood, her back protesting after sitting still for so long. She picked up the coffee, made exactly how she liked it, and walked to the window. From this height, the city looked small, manageable, like something that could be controlled. "It's different from up here," June said quietly. "Everything is." Lincoln moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. From down there, all of this, he gestured at the office, the building, the empire he'd built, looks impossible, untouchable. From up here, you see, it's just work, strategy, execution. "Is that how you see everything? As something to be strategized and executed?" He was quiet for a moment. "Most things, not all." His next decision would decide whether he lived or died. June glanced at him, but his expression was closed off again, unreadable. They stood there in silence, watching the city, until Lincoln's phone buzzed. He checked it and sighed. "Romano is here early. Again." He drained his coffee and set down the cup. "Send him in when he arrives at the door. This won't take long." "Should I sit in?" June asked, remembering he'd said she'd attend meetings. "Not this one. Romano is temperamental. I'll ease you into the more difficult clients." He paused. "But stay alert. If you hear raised voices, call security immediately. Don't wait for my signal." June's stomach tightened. "Is he dangerous?" "Everyone in my world is dangerous," Lincoln said simply. "But Romano is usually just loud. Still, better safe than sorry." He straightened his tie, his face shifting into that cold, professional mask she'd seen him wear with difficult clients. When Romano appeared at the door 30 seconds later, Lincoln greeted him with firm authority and led him to the conference table in the corner of the office. June returned to her desk and tried to focus on her work, but she kept one ear on the conversation. Lincoln's voice stayed calm, measured, while Romano's grew increasingly agitated. But no one shouted. No one escalated. After 20 minutes, they shook hands and Romano left, looking mollified if not entirely happy. Lincoln loosened his tie and returned to his desk. "Well handled on your end. You didn't panic." "Was I supposed to panic?" "Some people would have." He pulled up a file on his computer. "Now, let's go over those sensitive files I mentioned. Close the door, pull your chair next to mine, and prepare to learn exactly what kind of business I'm really in." June did as he asked, her heart racing. This was it. The moment where she'd learn the truth about Lincoln Knox and decide whether she could live with working for a man who operated in the shadows. She pulled her chair next to his, their shoulders nearly touching. His screen displayed a file marked "Confidential" in red letters. "What I'm about to show you stays between us," Lincoln said, his voice low. "Not even Piper knows some of this. Can I trust you?" June met his eyes, saw the weight of the question, and answered with the only truth that mattered. "Yes, you can trust me." He held her gaze for one more moment, then nodded and opened the file. What happened next changed everything. The change was immediate and brutal. By Tuesday morning, everyone on the floor knew June Perry had been promoted above them. Whispers followed her from the elevator to Lincoln's office. When she walked to the break room for water, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Eyes tracked her every movement like she was a threat that needed monitoring. Piper was the worst of it. She appeared at Lincoln's office door at 9:15 a.m., dressed in a black dress that hugged every curve, her makeup flawless, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Lincoln," she called through the door, knocking twice. "Do you have a moment?" Lincoln glanced up from his computer, his expression already cooling. "I'm busy, Piper. If you need something, schedule it through June." Piper's smile tightened. "It's about June, actually. It'll just take a moment." But there was one thing he didn't know about his closest ally. Lincoln's jaw tightened, but he waved her in. "Make it quick." Piper stepped inside, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She deliberately positioned herself between Lincoln's desk and June's, as if June wasn't even there. "I'm concerned about the transition," Piper began, her voice dripping with false concern. "June is a lovely person, very sweet, but she doesn't have experience managing executive-level responsibilities. I've been thinking, maybe I could assist with training her, help smooth the learning curve." June's hands stilled on her keyboard. The insult was wrapped in politeness, but it was still an insult. "She's not competent. She needs my help. She's in over her head." Lincoln set down his pen with deliberate slowness. "June has been managing my calendar for exactly 2 days and has already improved efficiency by 30%. She's rescheduled 3 problematic meetings, identified 2 scheduling conflicts I didn't catch, and handled a difficult client with more grace than you've shown in the last 2 minutes. What exactly makes you think she needs training?" Piper's smile faltered. "I just meant, she's never worked at this level before. The executive suite requires a certain finesse, a certain understanding of the corporate culture that takes years to develop. And yet she's adapted in 48 hours. Lincoln leaned back in his chair, his eyes cold. "Was there anything else, Piper? Or can I return to the work that my very competent assistant has organized for me?" The dismissal was absolute. Piper's face flushed red. "I'm only trying to help. If I need your help, I'll ask for it. Through June. Who manages my schedule?" He picked up his pen again, already returning his attention to the document in front of him. "Close the door on your way out." He trusted her, and that was his biggest mistake. Piper stood there for 3 long seconds, her hands clenched at her sides. Then she turned and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glass. June exhaled slowly, her heart pounding. "That was subtle," Lincoln said dryly, not looking up. "She's not happy." "She's never been happy. The difference is now she can't hide it." He signed the bottom of the document and pushed it aside. "She'll try again. Probably more aggressively. Can you handle it?" "Yes." "Good." He checked his watch. "I have a call in 5 minutes. After that, I need you to pull the Castellano contract files. All of them, including the ones from 2019. We're renegotiating terms, and I want to see the history." June made a note. "The physical files or digital?" "Both. If there are discrepancies, I want to know." He paused. "And June? What Piper said, she's wrong." June interrupted quietly. "I know that. You know that. That's what matters." Something flickered in Lincoln's expression. Approval, maybe, or respect. "Exactly. Now let me take this call, then we'll go through those files together." The rest of the week fell into a rhythm. June arrived early, left late, and worked harder than she'd ever worked in her life. Lincoln was demanding but fair, expecting excellence but providing the tools to achieve it. He explained the nuances of contracts she reviewed, walked her through the politics of dealing with various clients, trusted her judgment on scheduling decisions that would have terrified her a week ago. Someone in the room was lying. But who? They worked late Wednesday night, reviewing the Castellano files spread across Lincoln's conference table. Around 8 o'clock, Lincoln loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms and the edge of a tattoo June had never seen before. You should eat something, Lincoln said, pulling out his phone. You've been staring at contracts for 3 hours. I'm fine. That wasn't a suggestion. He was already dialing. Marcus, I need dinner sent up. 2 of everything from that Italian place on 5th. Yes, the good one. He ended the call and looked at June. You eat, or you go home. Your choice. June smiled despite herself. Those are my only options? I don't like watching people starve themselves for my sake. Makes me feel like a tyrant. He returned to the file he was reviewing. Besides, we're going to be here for another 2 hours minimum. You need fuel. The food arrived 30 minutes later, and they ate while working, falling into easy conversation about the contracts, the clients, the impossible web of relationships that kept Lincoln's business empire running smoothly. You're good at this, Lincoln said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Reading between the lines. Most people miss the subtext in these contracts. You catch it every time. I read a lot of contracts in my last position, June said. You learn to look for what's not said as much as what is. Smart. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. Tell me something, June. Why do you make yourself so small? You're intelligent, capable, insightful. But you act like you're apologizing for taking up space. The question hit like a physical blow. June set down her fork, her appetite suddenly gone. I don't, she started, then stopped. Old habits, I guess. From what? From being told I was too much, too loud, too opinionated, too present. She looked down at her hands. I learned it was easier to be quiet, to take up less space, to let other people shine. In that moment, the entire balance of power flipped. Lincoln was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than she'd ever heard it. You're not too much, June. You're exactly right. And anyone who made you feel otherwise was a fool. June looked up, startled by the intensity in his eyes. I mean it, he continued. You don't need to be smaller. Not here. Not with me. I want you exactly as you are. Understood? June's throat tightened. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He stood and started gathering the files. Now let's finish this so I can get you home at a reasonable hour. Though knowing you, you'll probably stay late anyway just to prove you can handle it. He wasn't wrong. June smiled and stood to help him organize the documents. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same folder, and neither of them pulled away immediately. The touch lingered, warm and electric, before Lincoln cleared his throat and stepped back. Tomorrow, he said, his voice rougher than usual. 9 a.m. We're meeting with the Castellano group. I want you there. Take notes. Observe the dynamics. Don't speak unless I ask you a direct question. Understood. And June? He looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable. Thank you. For the work. For the honesty. It's rare. You're welcome, June whispered. He nodded and returned to his desk, but June felt the weight of what had just shifted between them. They weren't just boss and assistant anymore. They were becoming something else, something neither of them had words for yet. Outside the glass walls, the office floor was dark and empty. Inside, they worked in comfortable silence until nearly 10 o'clock. When Lincoln finally told her to go home, he walked her to the elevator himself, a first, and waited until the doors closed before returning to his office. June rode down alone, her heart full of something warm and terrifying that she wasn't ready to name. What followed next was completely unexpected. It started the following Tuesday. June had stayed late again, the third night that week, working through a complex contract negotiation that needed Lincoln's signature by morning. When she finally finished at 9:47 p.m., she saved the file, closed her laptop, and stood to gather her things. Lincoln appeared in his office doorway, jacket already on. I'll drive you home. June blinked. That's not necessary. I can take a cab. I'm not asking, June. Get your things. His tone left no room for argument. 15 minutes later, June sat in the passenger seat of Lincoln's car, a sleek black sedan that screamed understated wealth, as he navigated through the quiet streets of Manhattan. His security detail followed in a second vehicle, keeping a discreet distance. "You don't have to do this," June said, watching the lights of the city blur past her window. "I've been taking cabs for years." "I know you have." Lincoln's hands were steady on the wheel. "But you're working for me now. That makes you a target." June's stomach tightened. "A target for what?" "For anyone who wants to get to me. Information, leverage, access." He glanced at her briefly before returning his eyes to the road. "You have access to my calendar, my contacts, my business dealings. That makes you valuable to people who would use that information against me." He couldn't explain why, but danger was closing in. "I would never." "I know you wouldn't, but they don't know that. And they won't ask nicely." He turned onto her street. Somehow he already knew where she lived without her giving directions. "So I drive you home when we work late. It's not negotiable." June should have felt afraid. Should have realized exactly how dangerous Lincoln's world really was. Instead, she felt protected, safe. Like for the first time in years, someone was looking out for her. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." "You're welcome." He pulled up in front of her building. A modest walk-up in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy but clean and safe. June reached for the door handle. "June." She turned back. Lincoln was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Be careful," he said. "Lock your door. Check before you answer. If anyone approaches you asking about me or my business, you walk away and call me immediately. Understood?" "Understood." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. June climbed out of the car and walked to her building entrance, aware of him watching until she was safely inside. Only then did she hear his car pull away. The pattern continued. Every night they worked late, which became most nights, Lincoln drove her home. They talked during those drives, not about work, but about real things. June's college years, Lincoln's decision to take over the family business, the books they'd read, the places they'd traveled, the dreams they'd abandoned, and the ones they still held close. Thursday night, 2 weeks after the drive started, Lincoln reached over and took her hand. What she found in the envelope froze her in place. It was casual, natural, like it had been inevitable. His hand engulfed hers, warm and strong, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gentle rhythm. June's breath caught, but she didn't pull away. They drove in silence the rest of the way, hands intertwined, the gesture saying everything neither of them had words for yet. When he pulled up in front of her building, he didn't let go immediately. "This," he said quietly, his eyes on their joined hands. "Tell me if it's too much, too fast. If you need me to stop, I will." June looked at him, really looked. She saw the careful control, the patience, the way he was holding himself back even as he held her hand. He wasn't pushing, wasn't demanding, just offering. "Don't stop," June whispered. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. He lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Soft, reverent, claiming. "Then I won't." June floated up to her apartment, her hands still tingling from his touch. She locked her door, leaned against it, and tried to process what was happening. Lincoln Knox, powerful, dangerous, untouchable Lincoln Knox, was pursuing her. Slowly, carefully, like she was something precious that might break if he moved too fast. "You're not his type." Piper's words echoed, but they were hollow now. Whatever type Lincoln wanted, June was becoming it, not by changing herself, but by being exactly who she was. Are you Team June and Lincoln? Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This story is just getting started. The next night, Friday, they worked even later. A crisis with a supplier had Lincoln on the phone until nearly 11. When he finally hung up, he rubbed his face with both hands and sighed. "Come on," he said, standing. "I'm getting you home before midnight for once." They rode the elevator down together, his security team already waiting in the lobby. But when they reached the car, Lincoln opened the back door instead of the front. "We're riding together tonight," he said, sliding in beside her. The back seat was spacious but felt intimate. The privacy screen between them and the driver was up. They were alone in this small, dark space, the city lights streaming past the tinted windows. Lincoln reached for her hand again, and June gave it willingly. They sat in comfortable silence until he spoke. "June, I need to be clear about something." His voice was serious, weighted. "I don't do casual. I don't do temporary. If this continues..." He gestured between them. "It's not going to be hidden. It's not going to be a secret. Eventually, everyone will know." "I understand. Do you?" He turned to face her fully. "Because once this becomes public, there's no going back. You'll be attached to me in everyone's mind. My enemies will see you as a weakness to exploit. My allies will see you as a way to get to me. Your life will change in ways you can't predict." Under the floorboard, he discovered a truth he wasn't ready for. June thought about Piper's cruelty, the whispers that already followed her, the notes slipped under doors. Her life had already changed the moment Lincoln promoted her. This was just the next step. "I'm not afraid," she said, surprised to find it was true. "You should be. I'm a dangerous man, June. I operate in a dangerous world." "I know what you are, Lincoln. I've known from the beginning." She squeezed his hand. "And I'm still here." He studied her face for a long moment, searching for doubt, for fear, for any sign she didn't understand what she was agreeing to. Whatever he saw satisfied him. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay." He lifted their joined hands and pressed another kiss to her knuckles, then her wrist, then the inside of her palm. Each touch was soft, reverent, but there was heat beneath it. Promise. "I'm falling for you," June whispered before she could stop herself. Lincoln's hand tightened on hers. "Good, because I've already fallen." He pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. June settled against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her cheek. They rode the rest of the way like that, wrapped together in the darkness, the city passing by outside while inside this small space. Something profound and irreversible was taking shape. When they reached her building, Lincoln walked her to her door for the first time. He waited while she unlocked it, then cupped her face in his hands. "Sleep well, June." "You too, Lincoln." He smiled, a real warm smile that made him look younger, less burdened. Then he turned and walked back to his car, leaving June standing in her doorway with her heart pounding and her future suddenly looking nothing like she'd imagined. But maybe, she thought as she locked her door and leaned against it, maybe that was exactly right. Something didn't add up. And the truth was darker than he expected. Monday morning arrived with a new tension crackling through the office. June felt it the moment she stepped off the elevator. Conversations cutting off mid-sentence, eyes tracking her movement. Whispers following her like a shadow. She walked to Lincoln's office with her head high, refusing to show how much it bothered her. Inside, Lincoln was already at his desk, reviewing something on his tablet. He glanced up when she entered and frowned. "They're talking," he said. It wasn't a question. They're always talking, June replied, setting down her bag. It doesn't matter. It matters if it affects you. He set down the tablet. What are they saying? June hesitated. She didn't want to repeat the ugly words she'd overheard in the bathroom that morning. Sleeping her way to the top. Using her body to get ahead. Office whore. The whispers had been vicious, cutting, designed to make her feel small. Nothing I can't handle, she said finally. But what Piper didn't know was that someone was watching. Lincoln's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. Lincoln, what are they saying? Each word was precise, controlled, but June heard the danger underneath. She exhaled slowly. They think I'm sleeping with you to keep my position. That I'm using you, or you're using me. Take your pick. The theories vary depending on who's talking. Lincoln's jaw tightened. Names? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Names, June. She shook her head. I'm not going to be the person who gets people fired because they gossiped. That makes me exactly what they think I am. Someone who wields your power to hurt people. Lincoln stood and walked around his desk, stopping directly in front of her. You're not wielding anything. I'm choosing to protect what's mine. There's a difference. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it made something warm unfold in her chest. I can handle gossip, June said quietly. What I can't handle is uncertainty. I need to know. She took a breath. Is this real? What's happening between us? Or am I a distraction? Something temporary until you get bored? That moment, everything in the room changed. Lincoln's expression softened. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. June, look at me. She did, meeting those dark eyes that saw too much. I don't do temporary, he said, his voice low and intense. I don't do distractions. I don't waste time on things that don't matter. You matter. This matters. What we're building here, it's real. It's complicated and it's going to be difficult, but it's real. But why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why me? Piper was right. I'm not your type. I'm not glamorous or confident or... You're exactly my type. He cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. You want to know why? Because you're real. You're not performing for me. You're not angling for position or status or money. You're just you. Honest. Hardworking. Kind even when people don't deserve it. You see me as a person, not a title or a bank account or a stepping stone. June's eyes stung with unexpected tears. I've been surrounded by people who want something from me my entire adult life, Lincoln continued. Money, power, access, connection. Everyone has an angle, except you. You didn't want this promotion. I had to convince you to take it. You didn't want my attention. It terrified you. You're not trying to trap me or use me or leverage our relationship for personal gain. You're just here, being yourself. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How valuable? Her next words hit him harder than any bullet. I'm falling in love with you, June whispered, the words escaping before she could lock them down. Lincoln's breath caught. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his dark eyes searching her face. Then he smiled, soft, genuine, devastating. Good, he said, because I'm already there. He kissed her then, soft at first, testing, giving her room to pull away. When she didn't, when she leaned into him instead, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, he deepened the kiss. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and June felt herself melting into him. This was nothing like the careful touches in the car. This was claiming, promising, stating intentions that couldn't be misunderstood. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lincoln rested his forehead against hers. "No more doubts," he said firmly. "No more questioning whether this is real. I'm choosing you, June, publicly, permanently, and anyone who has a problem with that can find employment elsewhere." June laughed, a slightly breathless sound. "You can't fire everyone who gossips about us. Watch me." "Lincoln, I'm serious. I will make an example if I have to." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "But I don't think I'll need to, because come Friday, everyone is going to know exactly where we stand. No ambiguity, no room for speculation. They're going to watch me choose you in front of the entire office. And then they can gossip all they want, because it won't matter. The truth will be obvious." One wrong move and everything would fall apart. June's heart hammered against her ribs. "What are you planning?" "You'll see." His smile was mysterious, almost mischievous. "Now, we have actual work to do. The Romano contract needs final review before the meeting this afternoon. And June," he pressed one more soft kiss to her forehead, "stop listening to what other people think you should be. You're perfect exactly as you are." The rest of the week passed in a blur of work and stolen moments. Lincoln's touches became more frequent, more open. His hand on the small of her back as they walked to meetings, fingers brushing hers when he handed her files, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth. He was methodical, deliberate, showing the office bit by bit that June Perry was his, claiming her in increments small enough that no one could pinpoint when it became obvious. But it was becoming obvious. The whispers grew louder. Piper's hostility became palpable, and June found she cared less and less what any of them thought. Because every night, Lincoln drove her home. Every night, he held her hand. Every night, he kissed her goodnight at her door with increasing heat, never pushing for more, but making his intentions crystal clear. Friday was coming, and June had no idea what Lincoln had planned, but she trusted him. Completely. Irrevocably. For the first time in her life, she was letting someone else take care of her. And it felt like coming home. Everyone thought the deal went smoothly, but they were wrong. Thursday afternoon, Piper returned from a week-long vacation that everyone knew was really a strategic retreat. She stepped off the elevator looking refreshed, determined, and dressed in a red dress that was borderline inappropriate for the office. June watched from behind Lincoln's glass walls as Piper made her entrance. Every head turned. The men appreciated. The women assessed. Piper absorbed the attention like oxygen, her smile bright and confident. Then her eyes found Lincoln's office. Found June sitting at her desk. Found Lincoln himself, standing by the window on a phone call, his body language relaxed but authoritative. Piper's smile sharpened into something predatory. "Here we go," June murmured. Lincoln ended his call and glanced at her. "What?" Piper's back. "I noticed." He moved to his desk, already dismissing the subject. "Let her play whatever game she's planning. It won't change anything." June wished she had his confidence. His right-hand man had been hiding something from him. Piper waited until lunchtime to make her move. June had just returned from a quick break when she noticed Piper standing near Lincoln's door, smoothing her already perfect hair. She knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting for permission. "Lincoln?" Piper purred, stepping inside. "I just got back and wanted to say hello. I've missed working with you." Lincoln didn't look up from his computer. "Hello, Piper. Welcome back. If you need something, schedule it through June." "Actually, I was hoping we could have lunch, catch up on what I missed." Piper perched on the edge of his desk, an overly familiar gesture that made June's stomach tighten. "There's that new French place on." "I have lunch plans," Lincoln interrupted. "Oh." Piper's smile faltered. Maybe dinner then? I heard the board is concerned about the Romano deal, and I thought, the Romano deal is handled. June negotiated the final terms herself. It's done. Lincoln finally looked up, his expression polite but cold. Was there something else? Piper's face flushed. I wanted to. She glanced at June, then back to Lincoln. I wanted to make sure you know I'm available. For anything you need. Anytime. The implication was clear. The offer wasn't professional. He should have walked away. But then he saw it. Lincoln stood slowly, his full height and presence suddenly filling the space. Piper, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to hear it clearly. I don't need anything from you except professional competence in your assigned role. June handles my schedule, my meetings, and my personal affairs. That arrangement is not going to change. Do we understand each other? Piper's face went from flushed to pale. Yes, of course, I didn't mean to imply. Yes, you did. And now we're clear. He gestured toward the door. Close it on your way out. Piper stood frozen for a heartbeat, humiliation written across her perfect features. Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Through the glass, June watched her return to her desk, her movements stiff with barely contained rage. That was brutal, June said quietly. That was necessary. Lincoln returned to his desk. She needed to understand boundaries. Now she does. She's going to hate me even more now. She already hated you. At least now she knows it's pointless. He pulled up a file on his screen. Come here. I want you to look at the Castellano contract one more time before we finalize. June stood and moved to his desk, leaning over his shoulder to see the screen. Lincoln's hand came to rest on her lower back, a possessive, claiming touch that anyone looking through the glass could see. June stiffened slightly. Lincoln, people can see. Good. His hand stayed exactly where it was. Let them see. Friday's coming, but I'm done pretending this isn't happening. The contract, June. Third paragraph. Does that clause look right to you? But this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. June forced herself to focus on the contract, though her awareness of his touch made it difficult. They worked through the document together, his hand never leaving her back, his body close enough that she could feel his warmth. When they finished, June straightened and found half the office watching through the glass walls, including Piper, whose expression could have curdled milk. They're all staring, June murmured. I know. Lincoln stood and deliberately took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Go to lunch, June. Take a full hour. You've earned it. You said you had lunch plans. I do. With you. Tomorrow. Today you're taking a break away from this fishbowl. Go. I'll be fine for an hour. June wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He was giving her space to breathe before whatever he had planned for tomorrow. She squeezed his hand once, then gathered her things and left. The elevator doors had barely closed when she heard the whispers start. Friday arrived with June's nerves stretched taut. Lincoln had been mysterious all morning, checking his watch, sending cryptic texts to his security team, acting like a man with a plan he wasn't ready to share. At 2:47 p.m., he emerged from a meeting with the board and walked straight to June's desk. The entire office floor seemed to hold its breath. Are you ready? He asked, his voice carrying across the quiet space. June looked up from her computer. Ready for what? Lincoln smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. For the weekend. For me. For whatever comes next. His next decision would decide whether he lived or died. He held out his hand. June stared at it, understanding crystallizing. This was the moment. The choice. The public declaration that would change everything. Behind Lincoln, she could see the entire office watching. Piper stood frozen by her desk, her face a mask of shock and fury. Other employees had stopped pretending to work, openly staring at the scene unfolding. June took his hand. Lincoln's smile widened. He pulled her gently to her feet, then did something that made the entire floor gasp. He kissed her. Not a peck, not a brief professional touch. A real kiss, claiming and thorough, his hand cupping her face, his body angled to shield her from full view, but leaving no doubt about what was happening. When he pulled back, June was breathless and blushing and completely undone. "Ready now?" Lincoln asked, amusement dancing in his eyes. June could only nod. Lincoln kept her hand in his and walked toward the elevator, pulling her gently along. Not rushing, not hiding. Walking at a measured pace that gave everyone plenty of time to see them together. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. And as the doors slid closed, June caught one last glimpse of the office floor. Every face stunned, every mouth open, Piper's expression crumbling as reality crashed down around her. What happened next changed everything. The elevator descended in silence. Lincoln still held June's hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in that now familiar rhythm. June's heart was racing, her mind spinning with what had just happened. "You kissed me," she said, her voice slightly breathless. "In front of everyone." "I did." Lincoln's smile was satisfied, almost smug. "Problem?" No, I'm just..." June shook her head, unable to find words. "You just ended any chance of keeping this quiet. That was the point." He tugged her closer, wrapping his arm around her waist. "No more quiet, no more shadows, no more hiding. I told you I'd make it clear, and I did. Now everyone knows you're mine." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe, chosen, claimed in a way that left no room for doubt. "What about Piper?" June asked. "What about her?" Lincoln's tone was dismissive. "She'll find another job, or she'll stay and be professional. Either way, she's not my concern. You are." The elevator reached the parking garage. The doors opened to reveal Lincoln's car waiting, Marcus holding the back door open with his usual professional neutrality. "Weekend away, sir?" Marcus asked. "Yes, the estate. We'll be back Monday." Lincoln guided June into the car, then slid in beside her. In that moment, the entire balance of power flipped. June blinked. "Weekend away? Lincoln, I didn't pack." "Already handled. Maria from HR picked up clothes from your apartment this morning. They're all ready at the estate." He settled back into the seat, pulling her against his side. "I told you I had plans." "You broke into my apartment?" "I had Maria use the spare key you keep in your desk for emergencies. I'm not a complete criminal." His eyes danced with amusement. Close, but not complete. June wanted to be annoyed, but she was too stunned to manage it. "You planned all of this." "Of course. I don't do anything halfway, June. Surely you've noticed that by now." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "This weekend is about us. No office, no interruptions, no whispers or judgment or Piper's bullshit. Just you and me, figuring out what we're building here." The car pulled out of the garage into the late afternoon sun. June watched the city slide past the windows, feeling like she was in a dream. 48 hours ago, she'd been terrified of office gossip. Now she was being whisked away for a romantic weekend by a man who'd just claimed her in front of their entire company. "What about Monday?" June asked. "When we come back?" "What about it?" "Everyone will know. Everyone will talk. The gossip will be..." "Let them talk." Lincoln's voice was firm. "Let them say whatever they want. It doesn't change the truth. You're competent, hardworking, and you earned your position through merit. Our relationship is separate from that. Anyone who can't understand the distinction can take it up with HR, or with me." But I wouldn't recommend the second option. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for family. June turned to look at him fully. You really don't care what they think, do you? Not even a little. He cupped her face in his hand. I care what you think. I care that you feel safe and valued and respected. The rest of the world can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. June kissed him then, unable to hold back anymore. Lincoln responded immediately, deepening the kiss, his arms wrapping around her and pulling her close. The kiss was hungry, claiming, full of all the restraint he'd been showing for weeks, finally snapping loose. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lincoln rested his forehead against hers. Mine, he said quietly. Say it. Yours, June whispered. And I'm yours. No matter what anyone says, no matter what happens, I chose you, June Perry, and I don't take that lightly. June's eyes stung with tears. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, tears of relief that this was real and solid and not going to disappear. I love you, she said, the words easier this time. Lincoln's expression softened completely. I love you too, now and for whatever comes next. They drove in comfortable silence, wrapped together, as the city gave way to suburbs and eventually to rolling hills and estates. The Knox family property was massive. Gates and security, a long driveway lined with trees, and finally a house that was more mansion than home. You grew up here? June asked, staring at the sprawling building. Unfortunately, Lincoln's tone was dry. It's pretentious as hell, but it's private. And right now, privacy is exactly what we need. For once, he wasn't thinking like a boss, but like a man about to lose everything. Marcus opened the door and Lincoln helped June out. The evening air was crisp, clean, so different from the city. June could hear birds, wind in the trees, nothing else. Lincoln kept her hand in his as they walked up the front steps. Inside, the house was elegant but lived in, clearly maintained, but not sterile. Family photos lined the hallways. Comfortable furniture filled the rooms. Your room is upstairs, Lincoln said, gesturing toward the grand staircase. Second door on the right. Take your time getting settled. I'll make us dinner. You cook? June couldn't hide her surprise. I'm a man of many hidden talents. His smile was playful. 1 hour. Meet me in the kitchen. And June? He pulled her close for one more kiss. Thank you. For trusting me. For taking the risk. For being brave enough to be exactly who you are. June watched him walk away toward what she assumed was the kitchen, then climbed the stairs in a daze. The bedroom he'd indicated was beautiful, spacious, elegant, with a bathroom attached and a view of the grounds that took her breath away. Her clothes were indeed there, neatly hung in the closet. Maria had even included the comfortable jeans and sweaters June preferred on weekends, not just her work clothes. June showered, changed into soft jeans and a cream sweater, and tried to process everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been worried about office gossip. Now she was in Lincoln Knox's family estate, preparing to spend the weekend with a man who'd publicly claimed her and declared his love to Nate. Her life had transformed so completely she barely recognized it. But standing there, looking out at the peaceful grounds, feeling safe and chosen and loved, June realized she'd never been happier. Something didn't add up, and the truth was darker than he expected. Back at the office, Piper Fox stood alone at her desk, staring at the elevator doors where June and Lincoln had disappeared. The floor around her buzzed with shocked conversation, speculation, gossip that would feed the rumor mill for weeks. But Piper barely heard it. She'd lost. Completely. Utterly. The man she'd been pursuing for 2 years had chosen quiet, unremarkable June Perry. Had kissed her in front of everyone. Had walked out holding her hand like she was precious cargo he couldn't bear to let go. You're not his type. Piper had believed that. Had convinced herself that Lincoln Knox wanted what everyone wanted: glamour, sophistication, beauty that turned heads. She'd molded herself into exactly that, had positioned herself perfectly, had done everything right. And she'd still lost to a woman who wore sensible shoes and ate lunch at her desk and apologized for taking up space. Unbelievable, Piper muttered, gathering her things with shaking hands. A coworker passed by, smirking. Guess you were wrong about her not being his type, huh? Piper's face flushed hot. She grabbed her purse and walked to the elevator on unsteady legs. She needed air. Needed to get out of this building where everyone was staring, judging, enjoying her humiliation. The elevator doors closed and Piper leaned against the wall, her perfect mask finally cracking. She'd lost everything: her position, her pride, her fantasy of what could have been, because Lincoln Knox had chosen authenticity over performance. Substance over style. June Perry over everyone else. And there was nothing Piper could do about it except accept the truth she'd tried so hard to deny. He trusted her, and that was his biggest mistake. Meanwhile, at the estate, June found the kitchen and stopped in the doorway. Lincoln had changed into jeans and a black t-shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. He was at the stove, sleeves rolled up, moving with easy confidence as he cooked. "You're staring," he said without turning around. "You're cooking Italian." June could smell garlic, tomatoes, basil. And it smells amazing. "Family recipe, my grandmother taught me." He glanced over his shoulder. "Come here. You're helping." June moved to his side, and he handed her a wooden spoon. "Stir the sauce, slowly. Don't let it stick." They cooked together in comfortable silence, moving around each other with the ease of people who'd known each other far longer than a few weeks. Lincoln opened wine, June set the table, and when the pasta was ready, they sat across from each other in the cozy breakfast nook. "To new beginnings," Lincoln said, raising his glass. June clinked hers against it. "To being brave enough to take them." They ate and talked, really talked, about everything they'd been too busy to discuss. June's childhood, Lincoln's complicated relationship with his father, their dreams for the future, their fears about what they were building together. "I meant what I said in the car," Lincoln said when they'd finished eating and moved to the living room. A fire crackled in the fireplace, warm and inviting. "You're mine now. Not in a possessive, controlling way. In a partnership way. We're building something together. A life. A future. Whatever that looks like, we figure it out together." And suddenly, he realized he was being played. "What if I mess up?" June asked quietly. "What if I'm not strong enough for your world?" "You're stronger than you think. You've already proved that." He pulled her close, settling her against his chest. "And when things get hard, and they will, we face them together. That's what partnership means." June tilted her head back to look at him. "I'm terrified." "Good. So am I. That means this matters. That means we're doing something real." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "But I'm not going anywhere, June. You're stuck with me now." "Promise?" "I promise. In my world, when I make a commitment, I keep it. You have my word, my loyalty, my protection, all of it, for as long as you want it." "Forever, then," June whispered. Lincoln's arms tightened around her. "Forever it is." They sat there in the firelight, wrapped together, planning a future that neither of them could have imagined a month ago. Outside, the world continued spinning. The office gossip would rage and eventually fade. Piper would move on or move out. Life would continue. But inside this moment, inside this house, inside the circle of each other's arms, June and Lincoln had found something rare and precious. They'd found each other. Monday morning arrived with June's stomach full of butterflies. They'd spent the weekend in a bubble, cooking together, talking for hours, walking the grounds hand in hand, learning each other in ways that went far beyond the physical. Lincoln had been patient, gentle, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. But now they were returning to the office, to reality, to everyone knowing exactly what they were to each other. What she said next shattered his trust instantly. "Ready?" Lincoln asked, his hand finding hers as they rode the elevator up to their floor. "No," June admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." "That's my girl." He pressed a kiss to her temple just as the doors opened. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. The entire office floor watched as Lincoln Knox and June Perry walked out of the elevator together, hands intertwined, looking like exactly what they were, a couple who'd spent the weekend falling deeper in love. Piper wasn't at her desk. Her things were gone. Her nameplate removed. A new person sat in her place, already working efficiently. "She resigned this morning," Lincoln murmured, noticing June's glance. "Effective immediately." June felt a pang of something, not quite sympathy, but an acknowledgement of loss. Piper had lost this battle she'd created, had lost it so completely there was no recovering. But June couldn't find it in herself to feel triumphant. She just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that Piper had never understood what actually mattered. They reached Lincoln's office and he opened the door, gesturing for her to enter first. Inside, everything was exactly as they'd left it. June's desk, her nameplate, her plant, thriving in the sunlight. Lincoln closed the door behind them and pulled her into his arms. "We did it," he said. "We survived the weekend away and came back stronger. Think you can handle whatever comes next?" June smiled against his chest. "With you, I can handle anything." "Good answer." He tilted her chin up and kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. "Because this is just the beginning, June Perry. We've got a lifetime to figure out." His next decision would decide whether he lived or died. Through the glass walls, the office had returned to work. The gossip would continue, but it would fade. Eventually, June Perry and Lincoln Knox would just be another office romance, another story people told over coffee. But for June and Lincoln, they knew the truth. This wasn't just an office romance. This was a revolution, a transformation, a reclamation of authenticity over performance, substance over style, love over expectation. June Perry had been told she wasn't his type, but she'd become exactly what Lincoln Knox needed. A partner who saw him for who he really was. Someone who challenged him, supported him, stood beside him as an equal. And Lincoln Knox had given June something she'd never had before. Unconditional acceptance. The freedom to be exactly who she was without apology. The security of knowing she was chosen, valued, loved. 6 months later, they stood in the same office where it had all begun. But now, June wore a different ring on her finger. Now, when people whispered, it was about wedding plans and engagement announcements and how Lincoln Knox looked at his fiancée like she hung the moon. Piper Fox had been wrong about everything. June Perry was exactly Lincoln Knox's type. She just hadn't known it yet. If this story touched your heart, please share in the comments where you're watching from around the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that authentic beats perfect every single time. Your support keeps these stories alive.